Welcome, Wargamers. Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, doing a very brief Q&A question that I saw in the comments a while back and that I wanted to address. I thought it was pretty fun. So this comment comes from Magoo X, and he asks, maybe an elaboration on the Gitz obsession with bottles and why? That is a fantastic question. If you are unfamiliar with what he's talking about, it's been mentioned numerous times in the battle tomes as well as various stories where the Gloomspite Gitz show up. They have an obsession with bottles and not necessarily any particular contents of them. They're not trying to get medicinal drinks or potions or alcohol or anything like that. They literally just kind of hoard containers of any kind. And so let's talk about why that is. The Gloomspite Gitz are a type of Git or greenskin, a goblin essentially, that adapted to life within the dark subterranean caves of the mortal realms. Now these could look wildly different from one another. They're typically extremely low light conditions, very like a lot of moisture on the walls. There's algae, there's fungus, there's mushrooms. And all of these things kind of work into the Gloomspite's lives by allowing them to produce food, drink, poison, toxins, all that kind of stuff. All of their technology, medicine, and understanding of the realms really is isolated to what is inside of their caves, inside of their natural habitats. So you take that fact and you put it to the side, and then you move into the idea that the Gitz themselves are diminutive little creatures who all want power. Who's the most powerful among them? Well, it's going to be your biggest and your strongest, so that's going to be like your warlords and that kind of thing. But also shamans and mystics and wizards all have sort of a special tier of power that general Gitz don't have. If you happen to be one of the rare Gloomspite that's able to wield magic, you are already stronger than those around you. But because of the sheer number of Gitz, they're not alone. So all of these little coteries of wizards and the warbands that they can kind of wrestle to get to do their bidding are all competing with one another. Okay, so that's our second point. A lot of competition between low-level wizards. We'll put that second thing in the pin in there. The third thing here to mention is the fact that their technology level has not reached a point where they can blow glass, essentially. They can't create glass items, or any kind of container they have is exceptionally crude. So think like leather pouches, which are not the best for some materials, that kind of thing. You also don't want a material that's going to react with whatever you put in it. So say you use like a leather bag for carrying water. If you load it up with like poison and fungus, is it going to then twist and mutate your packaging so that it rots and falls apart, or is the leather going to have an effect to reduce the effectiveness of whatever's inside? Again, it's reactivity. When you put all those things together, their level of technology, how many people or minor wizards are trying to battle for power, combined with the restrictions of their natural environment, you get a recipe for a lot of wizards wanting to use their magics and use whatever potions and poisons and concoctions they can come up with, but no means to transport or deliver them upon their enemies. This is where bottles come in. You see, if a Gloomspite Gitz horde can go out to a town, raid it, and collect as many bottles as they can, right? Let's say your average little warband of Gitz goes out, gets 50 bottles, right? It could be moonshine jugs, it could be like tiny little vials for like special medicine, anything. Just scoop up anything they can, bring it back to their little head wizard. That wizard can then create poisons, toxins, give them back to his troops, so now they have better weapons than their opponents, and they can slowly begin to rise in rank within the Gloomspite Gitz society, multiplied by the number of tiny little warlords that are all trying to do the same thing. Because a poison or a potion is no good if you can't get it to where it needs to be used. The way that I liken it is to bullet casings, right? Imagine if the world had all the stuff to make bullets and all the countries in that was equal, but there was a limited amount of bullet casings. Well, then we would all be scouring and trying to clamor for them, because whoever has the most of those can get the most bullets, ergo the most weapons, the most demonstration of power. Now keep in mind, this integrates into their society in a lot of different ways. Up till now, I've painted the picture of wizards kind of being the premier leaders of troops that are able to get those kinds of things and band an entire army to themselves to go get bottles so then he can re-equip them and that kind of thing. That's of course not how it always goes. A lot of times, martial leaders will rise within the Gloomspite Gitz, those who aren't magically gifted, but they have a lot of might and a lot of charisma and a lot of Gitz follow them. Well, a wizard might go to them, this little warlord, and be like, hey, I will give you my services if you can procure me bottles and resources for my research, my magical research. In this way, you have a fighter Git on top, a wizard that's kind of, it's still a hero, but below him and kind of to the side, but they all still have a mission to go out and get bottles because it benefits all of them. The more Gitz you have out looking for containers and things like that, the more health potions, the more poison that you can bring out, and then give it to your enemies or give it to your heroes when they get injured and somehow don't die from a 4-wound weapon. Now, this does raise an interesting question here of what would happen if the Gitz figured out how to make glass containers themselves. Like if they, instead of going out and raiding that kind of short-sightedness of just taking what's already existing, and instead went back and learned how to like reverse engineer glass, whatever Git does that, I imagine would be fairly invincible. Like not literally invincible, any of them die to a stiff breeze, but in terms of adding something to a civilization, it's like a technology jump that it missed, right? Like they got all these things to use glass bottles in, but they didn't actually develop the technology to use or make glass bottles. So if one clan were to figure that out, they have an immediate advantage over everyone else, or at least a bit of leverage that they can offer to a wizard or warlord to be able to get rich. Now that's from the practical side of things. I do truly believe that part of the deal with goblins and bottles is to give them a funny little side mission that they always want to do. Like just by virtue of that arrangement of how valuable containers of any kind are, it gives them a reason to hit any trading caravan, because the caravans also need those bottles to transport things from point A to point B. Gives you a chance to raid on any settlement, and this could be for death factions, order, chaos, it doesn't matter. All of them use containers of some kind. It's just the destruction factions that pretty much are limited to leather pouches and things like that. So it gives them a motive to fight in any single battle whatsoever because they just want bottles, bro. But also it's a fun little side thing that fits into what makes them unique within the realms, that they are this very cunning and conniving thing. They use resources exceptionally well. They certainly mastered their environment with all the different fungi and poisons, toxins, healing potions, all these kinds of things that they can make. They're exceptionally innovative, except this one piece of technology that they're missing. And I like that. I like that idea for a destruction army. It's like, it's not that they're dumb, it's that they're just missing these key things that they just, well, I'll just go take it from somebody else. Like, well, if you had the mindset of learning it yourself, you'd be much stronger. But of course, that's what makes them destruction army. They don't have a lot of deep thoughts like that. And I think that works from a practical perspective of why these guys haven't conquered the whole setting yet, just by due to their sheer numbers and stuff. But also works on an entertaining level of just, you guys are so close. You're so close to figuring it all out. Hang in there, little guys. This also does make me want a city of Sigmar and Gur that to survive had to get into glass bottle manufacturing. Like, it's kind of like how the bone splitters have a tithe of bones. These guys, like, we just leave 6 pallets of glass bottles out and the Gitz leave us alone. Like, that would be a fun story. And maybe they're mining all like the elements of glass and the raw materials they need from everywhere around them, but they can't excavate this mountain, which is rich in materials for glass, because that's where the Gitz live, and if you touch their mountain, they're going to kill you. And also, if you don't give them the glass bottles that you need with those materials, they'll kill you then. Kind of a rock and a hard place. I think that could be a really compelling story. Honestly, I'd love to see more stories of humans working with destruction factions. We have a few of like Sons of Behemoth and stuff like that, but not a ton. And I can't think of any other destruction faction outside of food for ogres where there is like a thing that a destruction army wants that humanity can provide, essentially. Like, this is a very easy transaction. I leave glass bottles out for you. You do something for me, whether it's protection, leave me alone, you're a mercenary, you know, that kind of thing. It could be a lot of different relationships with that, but that transactional nature, there's not a lot of that in destruction. Like, orcs don't want anything other than a good fight. So I like having at least one army where there is a thing, like a MacGuffin that they desire. But anyway, Magoo, that was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. If you have a question that you would like answered, go ahead and always leave them in the comments. I really do use the comments as inspiration for future videos and discussions. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy wargaming.